In the world of many internal and external voices, the voice you listen to is the voice that dictates your life. Would you like to discover a clear path to a life of freedom and fulfillment? Then welcome to All About the Voice podcast, where we focus on awareness, alignment, and action in order to live a life of abundance. I am your host, Victoria Rader. What is it to live your life magically? Is it hakuna matata, the worry-free philosophy? According to Madeline P Wober, aka Maddie Sparkles, America's Scottish Sparkle, we live our life magically when we get out of our own way, release our fears, have faith, and step into our power and feel divinely guided. Here is Maddie Sparkles, a voice for living magically. All right, Maddie Sparkles, welcome to All About the Voice.
I'm so delighted to be here, Victoria. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's an honor and it's a real sparkle to be looking at your bright soul and at your beautiful, beautiful face. You guys should be so jealous that you're just getting the audio. I was telling Maddie that her sparkle is so genuine, but she also looks so fantastic and beautiful. And today for my Tree of Life, I've posted, you got to surround yourself with people that make your heart smile. And Maddie, you make my heart smile.
Oh my goodness, I'm so humbled and touched by all your beautiful words. And of course, I feel exactly the same way about you.
Well, so tell me, what about this whole thing of living magically? Everywhere I see you, there is a trace of living magically. What does it mean to you?
Oh, living magically. So life can be so mundane for us humans, and we have to really look for the magic around us. And once we tap into that magic, we see it everywhere. It's in the nature, it's in the abundance of the planet. You know, if you drive by a lake, we don't often stop to think how many drops of water are in that lake, or how much rain falls from the sky, like the abundance of the universe, every leaf that's on a tree. It's just incredible when we really tap into the abundance of the planet. And also living magically to me is living in gratitude, living in grace. Yes, we're going to have challenges because that's part of the human story, part of our human life and what we agreed for before we came to this planet. In every challenge, there's a gift for us if we're just patient enough, or we can just put aside our emotions. And when I say put aside, I don't mean bury them and forget about them. But, you know, sit with your anger or sit with your disappointment or sit with your frustration and know that all of this is part of living magically, because it's showing us all the time how we can better our lives and how we can bring in more of what we want. Also, for living magically, for me, music has a big part to do with that, as well as serendipity, which when you're in that alignment, all these magical things and chance meetings start happening with people that are like-minded. I absolutely love that we're doing this together and how we've crossed paths. And even the fact that your whole thing is the Tree of Life, that is very symbolic for me, being Jewish, and I absolutely love it. And also, I love just the fact of living by 3 words: desire, imagine, expect. And just desiring what we want and imagining it to be and expecting it, and then just letting go and see what happens, because what is for you won't go by you. And then to just top it all off, a nice dose of faith to just know that things are happening for you, and they're happening maybe not always on your time, not on my time, but they're happening for us. And everything that we really, really want for ourselves is likely to happen when we get out of our own way. So all of that constitutes living magically for me.
Oh, beautiful. You know, things are in that serendipity that you're saying. I just interviewed somebody who was talking about things happening for you. The same day I taught the law of synchronicities, and to have you kind of aligned that this is a part of magic is beautiful. You know, Maddie, I was trying to think, who does she remind me of energy-wise? My very first friend in U.S. I came to U.S. when I was in my early 20s, didn't know anybody, well, other than my husband-to-be. And this incredible soul, her name was Wynn Red. Wynn was quite a bit older than me. I was 20. She was in her late 60s, early 70s. And yet we became the closest friends. And she just lived life magically. You know, everything she touched, everything was light. And when you would look at her, you'd say, oh, you know what? She just probably had this trouble-free life. But as I got to know her, It was the result of a very tumultuous, trying and challenging life and overcoming it through that gratitude. So as I look at you, tell me, where does that sparkle start? What is your story?
Oh, you're so right, Victoria. And it's such a joy to think that someone like that would remind you of me, because that's how I want to be for other people. You know, I've had so many chance meetings, and it's just such a beautiful way to just make authentic friendships. For me, I grew up in Glasgow, Scotland, and I always was very spiritual. I was always very intuitive as a young child. I remember at 2.5 years old running away and just being so excited that I was free and out of the house and away from my mum, even though she was being so loving. She was very protective, and I was always this free spirit. And over the years, I just started feeling really misunderstood from the ones closest to me. I had a sister 2 years younger than me, and then a big age gap of 9 years before my other little sister came into the world. So for a long time, it was the four of us in the family, and my dad was always away working, and my mum was looking after us and bringing us up. And I just felt very misunderstood and very unaligned, and I felt like I don't belong here and no one understands me. And I was also very feisty, and I had opinions, but I wasn't allowed to express these opinions. And so all of this over the years, by the time I got to my 20s, I was really fraught with anxiety and anger. And this really became panic attacks and depression and chronic anxiety. I couldn't drive. I couldn't go out the house. I mean, I really felt like a prisoner in my own life. And it was all the while trying to be like upbeat and bright for people. So I was kind of living this lie as well. And that was happening in my 20s. And I overcame that with really good help from therapy, but also exercises that I now teach other people, and also very much about your mind, like the mindset piece and what we think about. So much of the time, my anxiety came from the thoughts, the really torrid thoughts that I was having. And then a decade later, in my 30s, I had ovarian cancer. And again, I think that was the remnants, or I know it was, still anger that I had in my body that just wasn't able to get out and to release into the world. So that was another big wake-up call for me. And all the while, I was still very tuned into looking at the positives in life, finding the silver linings. So while I was going through my cancer, I had this very strong feeling of, I know I can heal myself. I want to think positive. What am I meant to be doing in the world? At the time, I was studying to become an actor, and I was living in New York City. It was a dream come true. And this bout of ovarian cancer happened right at the point that I was about to go out and meet agents. And so I end up back in Scotland in hospital, and I'm wondering, my goodness, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Maybe this is not my dream. Maybe this is not what I'm meant to be doing with people or to help people. And I wrote about this actually in a book recently, in a chapter that I was co-authoring in this book. And it was really all about the fact that I was lying in hospital, and I saw this documentary about this woman who wanted to cycle the length and breadth of Great Britain and from Land's End to John O'Groats for charity. And she had cancer, and her whole demeanour, the way she was being, how much she wanted to be of service to others, even though she herself was dying, made me feel so inspired and so empowered that I went into surgery the next day. And I just thought, you know what, whatever is meant to be will be. You know, I'm 29 years old. If I have to have a hysterectomy, then that's what's meant for me. If I end up with still an ovary, then I trust that. And I did wake up with an ovary still. So that was all happening. And that led me to want to become a qualified, certified coach. And I studied with the Coaches Training Institute, which is worldwide and based in America. But I studied with them from London. And later, when I moved to the States, I became more involved with them in their other courses. So I was on the path to empowering others and helping others and coaching people. And all the while this was happening, all through New York and all through the cancer time, I was really becoming aware of and connected to the angels around me and my own guardian angel. And I started to hear that guidance quite often. And then in my 40s...
Before you move on to your 40s, what was the guidance? What was that first time you heard the guidance, and what was it? What was it like?
So the guidance was a voice, and the voice initially sounded like me, but I knew that it wasn't coming from my ego. It wasn't my own mind. It was like a much higher, more evolved, very, like you can hear I talk quite quickly because I've got that Scottish energy and I talk quickly. But this voice that I would hear was just very grounded, very firm, very like been there, seen it, done it.
Mm.
And would just know the answer to anything that I asked, and would sometimes give me guidance in terms of this is where you need to be, this is where you need to go. And other times it would be just sit and do nothing and wait and trust me, I've got you. And whenever I heard that voice, it would be at a time when I was just finished meditating, or I'd be quiet enough to hear it. And I felt like, oh, this is so good to know that I have this guidance in my life. I know that it's there and I can feel it, and it always keeps me right.
Oh, beautiful. And now, since I've interrupted you, back to your 40s. Can't wait to hear the story.
Well, the third decade of my 40s I've been talking about, I then was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. And each time I heard that something big was happening, like, okay, I knew I was going through anxiety and depression because I felt suicidal at the time in my 20s, and I really was beside myself and didn't know what to do. When my ovarian cancer came, I kind of felt like, okay, I get this. I'm on a path and I'm in a contract, a soul contract with things that are supposed to happen for me in this lifetime. This is another one. And then by the time I heard about multiple sclerosis, I almost felt like I knew what it was before it happened, because I started feeling it in my body. I felt like I was walking and looking like people that when I saw them and I thought that's what they had, I felt that's what I had. And I remember this young boy he was older than me at school, and his name was Joshua, beautiful spirit. And he was always this very good looking rugby player, very strong, very fit. And he ended up having multiple sclerosis later on in his life, probably in his 20s. And his was declining, and unfortunately he passed away. But I just remember looking at him and seeing him after many years when I had gone back to Scotland and I hadn't seen him for a long time, and being so shocked at what he looked like that I just thought, oh my goodness, there was something that really affected me by seeing him. And I remember at that time thinking, gosh, I really, really hope that never happens to me. And I pray so much for my health. And when I found out that I had multiple sclerosis, I just had this kind of aha moment that we can often look at something and see something and have the greatest fear about it. And it's just, there's something about like, maybe that was part of my path as well. We don't always know why these things happen. But for me, I'm being very open about it in terms of I trust that what's meant to be for me is the way it is, and it doesn't have to hinder me. I can always make choices to eat healthy, to live a healthy life, but most importantly, to stay positive, because the positivity in my being, in my cells, can literally heal me. And so far, so good. But yes, I also wanted to say something about, in case anyone's listening and they think, oh my goodness, does that mean that if we're really scared of something, we manifest it? You know what? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe yes, maybe no. But I do know that we're never given anything that we can't deal with. We're all given our own challenges and we can deal with them. And maybe there was a reason why I resonated with him so much, because maybe that was for me. And I was being shown like this can happen to anyone. And if it happens to you, you'll deal with it. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think fear is the fastest teacher of love if we allow for it, because it is when the door is wide open and we can either run out in fear or we can walk through in love, and that's, I think, the choice that you've made. It might have been fear, but you've chosen to walk through that door with love, and as a result, living life absolutely magically. And I look at 4 aspects that you talked about. Actually, before we go to those beautiful 4 C's of yours, I want to go back to, you described your exchange with your guardian angel. Now, I happen to know the answer, but I'm wondering whether somebody else would like to have an answer. Doesn't mean that everybody has a guardian angel. Do I have to be a specific faith, a specific spiritual path? Who are guardian angels as you see them? Does everybody have them? And what does it mean to our relationship to this living life magically?
Oh my goodness, what a great question. It's loaded. First of all, no, that's great. From my own experience and from my own intuition and what I know of in the world, every single human being, regardless of faith, regardless of religion, race, sex, anything, we all have a guardian angel. And a guardian angel is with us from the moment we're born until the moment we leave this life. Guardian angels are not spirit guides, they're different. But the guardian angel that we have, and some people might feel that they have more than one guardian angel. For me, I feel like I have one connection, like one strong guardian angel that guides me, that I hear that voice. And maybe there is actually one guardian angel, but they're also surrounded by their helpers, other angels. There are millions of angels in the world. There are even unemployed angels. Lorna Byrne talks about this. I love Lorna Byrne, the Irish lady who is like the real angel lady. But there are so many angels around us, and all we need to do is ask. If we don't ask, then they're not going to intervene because we have free will. But whenever you ask, even if you feel silly doing it, even if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, right, guardian angels, or I don't have one, you do have one, whether you believe in it or not, and you don't have to use it if you don't want to.
And it's most likely your guardian angel that put Maddie into your life right now, because he or she can't get through to you. So here is Maddie speaking on their behalf.
Maybe. And actually, it's so funny, Victoria, because as I'm talking to you and as I'm saying this is coming through me right now. I feel like this is not me specifically speaking, but there's things sometimes when I start talking or when I'm doing angel readings, things come through me and I hear them. It's like I'm sitting here listening to me talking to you. And you know, so we all have a guardian angel. And if you ever feel alone or lonely or in great challenge or deep fear, you can always ask your guardian angel. And how? Well, you just talk to them like you're talking to a best friend, or like you hear me and you talking to each other. Even if you can't see them, even if you can't hear them, just know that you have this presence around you that can always help you and wants only the best for you, only the best for you. So there's no darkness when it comes to guardian angels. There's no like, even though life is made of polarities and there's always light and dark and good and bad, the guardian angel for you only wants the best for you. So that's the first thing. Everyone's journey and connection is different. Everyone is unique. I can't speak for anyone else. I can only speak for myself. So, and I don't even claim to be a master at all of this. This is all just from my own experience and what's happened for me. I will often hear a voice in my head, or I'll feel heat down the side of my face. It's always the right side. And quite often it starts at my toes and I feel a tingling, and then it just carries up and up until I feel this heat at the side of my face. And I know this because there were times when I was in Scotland way back that I'd be sitting in a really cold room in the winter. And if you've been in Scotland, you know that winters are really cold. And if there's no heater on in the room, it's freezing. So I remember being in a really cold room. I don't know why, but I was sitting there, and maybe I think it was in like a building that I was in. And I suddenly felt this really strong heat. It was like this really like heating my face up. And I was standing beside a radiator, and I remember touching it, and it was stone cold. So I knew that the heat wasn't coming from that. It wasn't heating from the building. There was some energy around me that was really heating me up. So that's another thing. Sometimes we can see light. Sometimes, again, it can be an earth angel, like a human being is put on your path and they're saying to you exactly the thing that you needed to hear that day. Or you witnessed something and it's given you an answer to something that's been really causing you concern. That can all be signs from your angels.
Oh, beautiful. And so you talk about that connection. So tell me I know it's one of your 4 C's of connection, communication, compassion, and creative collaboration. And so that we're started on connection. So take me deeper into connection and into those other 3 C's and how you use them in your living magically process.
Oh, yes. So the reason I love 4 C's is because I love alliteration, and I love that when you can come up with letters that match or words that are alliteration, it just sounds, to me, it sounds magical. I love the language. I love the English language. So the 4 C's for me, yes, connection. The first one, connection. Connection is really why we're here, I believe. It's all about why humans are here. It's how we feel fulfilled. It's all about fulfillment. It's like when we feel connected, number one, to ourselves, and then to other people, we feel like we're part of something. We feel like we belong. We feel like that we now have a mission, whether it's an own mission or a joint mission. And there's nothing more upsetting than feeling disconnected. You know, that's when you feel lost and you feel so disconnected from yourself, or from maybe even physically from your family. Like during COVID, some people feel very disconnected, but there's always ways to connect again. And so one of the ways that I would use connection in terms of living magically is again to go inside, because when you can connect to that deep place within and go home, as we would call it, go home to that light within you, you will feel so deeply connected and so rooted and so grounded in your own life and in your own essence that you will then start feeling like you're more connected. And that might show up by the moonlight in the evening. If you see a dark sky and you see a bright moon in the sky, I have always felt so connected when I see the moon. And I talk about this quite a lot on my Facebook Lives. And also things like nature, you know, when you're connected, you start noticing things, you start really increasing your awareness, you start noticing the little ladybugs and the butterflies, and you start noticing the little flowers that bud in spring and the different trees. There's such a huge, I could talk about connection all day long. And one of my favorite things as a child used to be to do join the dots. Did you ever have that?
Yes, very much so.
You know, you have a wee pencil and you have the dots and you have the picture and you just join the dots. And it's funny, I haven't thought about that until this moment, but I used to love doing that. I got such satisfaction from joining the dots. And I think there's something to be said for that, like connecting. Some people that are maybe more in the academic field might love physics for the same reason. Like they love connecting, like wires, figuring out formulas. But connection is such a huge part of living magically for me, because without connection, you just feel like you're kind of like a ship without a mast. And it can feel quite lonely and quite sad if you're not connected. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
So before we go on to the next one, you know, I think if you guys are listening and you're saying, okay, where do I start? Because it's such a beautiful process of going inside. But I think the very first thing, if you just affirm, I am connected, if you just affirm, I am connected, and then if what Maddie is saying resonates with you, just saying, I'm asking to be connected to my angels, you know, I'm asking to be connected to my creator, whatever higher power you want to be connected to, I'm asking to be aware that I'm connected, because the reality is we all are connected. It's the perception of lack of connection that causes loneliness. Right? We're all always already connected. So really what we are just learning is to be aware of that beautiful connection. And you know, Maddie, John Maxwell said, everyone communicates, few connect. And I think it is a powerful concept. And as you talk, I'm going to, as you go down your 4 C's, something came through so powerful for me, because as I am currently writing a book about opening the possibility centers, you know, known in the Eastern world as chakras, as energy centers, but for me, there are possibility centers. I'm looking at your 4 C's, and when you look at that connection, yes, all 4 apply to all of these centers, but the top 2 centers energetically for us are what's called a crown chakra, the top of your head, and a third eye. One is your connection to the divine insight. The second one is your connection to insight as such. And so as you're looking through that connection, you go then to your throat chakra, which happens to be communication. And then if you go to your heart and your solar plexus, those are the cycle of compassion. We all say, I'm love, I'm light, God is love, God is light, universe is love. So those are cycle of compassion. And yet as you go further down to create the reality and to ground within it, which would be our sacral and root chakras, possibility centers for collaborating and creating, that would be creative collaboration. So all of a sudden your 4 C's are so aligned with actual energetic imprint of us as human beings. So I just wanted to share that with you because I've connected to it on a much deeper level as you talk about the connection. So please continue, take us to communication.
Oh, I just love everything you just said just now. How wonderful. Communication. Gosh, well, I've been communicating since the moment I could open my mouth. I think that was what I was born to do in the world. And I've also included this in a chapter in another book that I have co-authored, that when I was a child, I talked so much. I was sitting in my pram outside my parents' home and I would say, hello, man, to everyone who walked past. I would always want to connect and always want to communicate through speech, through like talking to someone. And I knew from a very young age that my words had energy, my words had power, and I could use these words to uplift others. I knew that intuitively from a very young age. Especially being around my mum, like I often felt like my mum had sadness, and I knew that if I could just say the right thing or say words that would uplift her, then it would make me feel even better. So communication for me was a big one. And then later on, when I was maybe about age 10 in school, I was a chatterbox and I used to speak a lot in class. And I remember one of my teachers said, Madeline, take your book, take your pen, take your desk, lift it up and take it out into the corridor. You need to get out of this classroom right now. And of course I did. And I felt really like sorry for myself. And I thought I was having such a good time talking to all my friends in class. And so I remember sitting outside in the corridor and just how funny that is to me, because years later, what did I do? I got a job talking. I became a radio broadcaster and I could talk all I wanted to and share as many positive words as I could to everyone that was listening. So communication, again, there's so many different ways. There's nonverbal communication where you can smile at someone and you have no idea how much of an impact that makes on that person. You don't know where they've come from, but that's going into the next C. So I'll stick with communication. But it's really just the whole art of communication, talking to someone. There have been many times in my life, because I've traveled all over the world, where I've maybe been on the tube in London, coming back from Heathrow Airport and being in a carriage full of people that don't speak English, yet managing to communicate, maybe with a laugh, maybe with some sign language. Again, sign language is another one. I don't actually sign, but whenever I'm in the presence of people that do, I have this overwhelming sense of awe. I think it is awe. When people that can't speak, but they sign with each other and they actually sound quite loud when they're talking, even if you can't hear. I have such an affinity for these souls because I just feel like, they're communicating in the way that they know and they do it so well. And I just love that. I love anything to do with communication. And of course, communication, you can have a lack of communication. And in my relationships, in my previous romantic relationships, when I experienced that lack of communication, it's so upsetting to me. It's so devastating that I can't communicate with my partner. And here's me feeling so high and mighty that I'm so great at communicating. So that's something that's always been a big, big, powerful lesson for me, and a big, like, almost like a neon sign, like, Maddie, how can you get clearer? How can you really use your words effectively so that they're landing on the other person with kindness and with grace, even if you're feeling frustrated or irritated right now? How can you communicate with this person so that your words land in a loving way and that you're being heard and that they're being heard as well? So there's a whole thing about communication that's to do with listening on so many levels, listening to what's not being said, listening to what is being said, listening to the environment, and also just the straight out communication, just speaking to another human being.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I think, and it's communicating your truth, and to communicate your own truth, you've got to be connected, right? That connection, you've got to be connected to the truth of who you are so that you can communicate it. The other day I had a client and we were talking about, she had a concern. She said, I just feel that another C for you, I feel that it's hard for me to commit. And yet when we scanned her energy, it turned into a beautiful teaching is that, no, you connect beautifully. I mean, you commit beautifully, but you commit to your scared self instead of your sacred self. Within you, there is a scared self. There are many scared selves within you. And yet there's this brilliant sacred self. The one you connect to is the one you communicate. Right? And so we're all very committed. It's just that which C. And when you look at scared and sacred, you actually just move a C there, right? It's just beautiful serendipity, really, because you go from scared to sacred, moving one C. And I believe that C is the C of compassion. It's the C of loving yourself and others with the most pure love. So how do you see compassion?
Every time you move into another C, I have so much to say about what you just said. So, oh my goodness, I love that sacred and scared is literally just switching one letter. That is so profound and so beautiful. And I love the fact that you just said C of compassion. You meant the letter C, and I'm thinking a sea of compassion, like the SEA. So I just love all this play on words and letters. It's so wonderful. But compassion for me is, it's so easy for us humans to get so obsessed and self-centered, thinking everything is about us all the time and that my worries and my problems are the biggest, most important thing. But how often do we actually put ourselves in the other person's shoes to actually look at this person, maybe that's driving you nuts, maybe that you're finding it hard to communicate with, maybe it's your boss or your colleague, or maybe it's a sibling or a parent, or maybe it's even your partner, and to actually turn that into compassion and be thinking, well, wait a minute, I see them as this, I love this, they see them as this role that they're playing, not the soul that they are. Yeah, I got that from Ram Dass. I didn't make that up, but I absolutely love that. It speaks so deeply to me that when you look at the role, then it creates a divide and you're like, they're over there, I'm over here, I'm right, they're wrong. Brings up that whole phrase of, do you want to be right or do you want to be in love? You know, so it's very easy to put them over there or to point the finger or to think, oh, they're doing this thing, and if only they would behave this way, I'd be fine. But the whole thought of compassion, where you can really, you have no idea what that person's going through. Even if you're super close to them, you don't know what's going on in their head. You don't know what they're experiencing or if they're covering up hurt or pain. And when you can really look to putting yourself in someone else's shoes, which of course you can't do, but you can try, you can make the effort and say, what's going on for you right now? Like, what do you need from me? How can I help you? How can I make your life better today? You know, it takes a lot for us to hold back on our own issues and fears to really get to that point where we can say that in a heated moment. Mm-hmm. But we can practice it and we can decide, we can have the intention. If anything happens today where I feel that there's a bit of a conflict, I am going to choose compassion. I'm going to put myself in that person's shoes and I'm going to try and understand them, because then we can become closer. Maybe a conversation has to be had that's not easy to have. And then as a result, we learn something, both of us, and we do become more connected and can communicate more easily. So yes, I think that compassion is very, very powerful, and it also allows us to connect more deeply.
Mm-hmm. And so how does that transition to your creative collaboration then?
Sorry, there was just one other thing I was going to say about compassion, that I think that's been one of the biggest gifts and blessings from COVID, which is another C. And just the fact that, you know, once upon a time, if something was happening in Africa or if something was happening in, you know, Afghanistan, yes, there might be for different reasons. But because of COVID, we have all felt the hit. We've all felt it in different ways. And we have really maybe lost someone or known that someone is ill or even suffered ourselves or felt fear around it. And so it's not just happening in our own country and our own place, it's happening everywhere in the world. So we know that people in Africa, we know that people in Afghanistan, yes, they're going through different things as well. And we have a whole bunch of issues politically in every part of the world right now. But there's something about compassion that really makes us not feel like it's not going to happen to us. Like just because someone is living in a different country, we're all being affected on a global scale. And it's something that we can all really resonate with and relate to. So that also brings us closer as a human race, you know, the planet. I think it's just so powerful. And moving into creative collaboration, I think this is one of the ones that excites me the most, because I get so excited when I get together with another like-minded soul or a kindred soul, kindred spirit, and we create together. Create collaboration. Oh my goodness, it's such an exciting thing to bring out of something. Now, out of nothing, you make something, whether it's a podcast or a conversation, whether it's a project or a course, whether it's actually building something physical. You know, there's something so fulfilling about creatively collaborating with other humans or with another human, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to build, and we stand on the shoulder of giants, all these things that have been created before us, even things that we take for granted, like electricity or running water, you know, plumbing, all of that stuff. It's like creative collaboration had to happen for all of these things to exist. So I love everything about creativity, and I love everything about collaborating. And when you find the right team or the right people to collaborate with, oh my goodness, there's no better feeling, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think the greatest miracles have come by the presence of the third or fourth energy that's been created in the group, right? We're limited when we are just one mind, and expanded beautifully and really magically when you collaborate with somebody. So where would our All About the Voice family find more about you, your offerings, your programs? How would we? And now one thing I do always mention, you guys, that there will be links in the episode description, obviously, but I also want to know where Maddie would direct us for what's hot off the press.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I would definitely go to maddiesparkles.com. That's MADDIE Sparkles with an S at the end.com. Everything that I offer is in there, from my Living Magically retreats, which are happening in Italy next summer. So definitely get in touch. There's a link on my homepage on maddiesparkles.com if you wanted to find out more about the Italy retreats, Living Magically. And also I do my angel readings 1-to-1, and there's a section in my website as well showing lots of reviews. And if you wanted to have an angel reading, which also includes other oracle cards, they are absolutely beautiful. They're very telling. They really reveal what you need to hear, and very comforting, and give you whatever you're asking for, they'll give you, because your angels are right beside you and they're listening to you and they know what you want more than I do even. So yes, maddiesparkles.com. If you follow Instagram, then you can go to Maddie, MADDIE _sparkles _8, and that will take you to my Instagram. And really between these two, you will always find what I offer. I have one other website called mybrilliantself.com. So you can always go there as well if you want to dig more into the coaching side. But really these days, I'm amalgamating my coaching and my spirituality together. So you're getting a much deeper help with whatever it is that you're looking for in your life right now.
Beautiful. And Maddie, I ask everybody these 3 questions. I'll ask them one at a time.
Ooh.
This is fun. This is fun. This is a pass kind of test.
Ooh.
It's a pass it magically kind of test.
Oh, I love it.
So the first question I have is that if you had this ability, which you do right now at the moment, to go back to that 20-year-old you at the first darkest moment in your life, what would you tell her?
Oh, I would say, don't take life too seriously, because everything is going to work out for you. You don't know it right now, but I promise you it will. And this is only making you stronger. So just keep going and know that things are going to get really tough, but you have the strength to overcome anything that comes your way. Otherwise, you won't be given it. So just keep going.
You know, this part makes me choke up every time. So by the time we're done, I'll be snot here. That was so beautiful. That was so beautiful. Okay. And now we're going to go take a trip to the future. So Maddie from 20 years from now, and this brilliant Maddie Sparkles, the globe Maddie Sparkles. What does she have to tell you? What do you need to hear today from her?
Oh, I love that. She is standing with this beautiful headpiece, like this turban style headpiece, turquoise, and she's got these beautiful sparkles on, and she's wearing these like flowing robes, and she's standing there so gracefully and calm, and she's welcoming me into her home, which is by the water. And she's saying, you know what, you've got this. You're on this path. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Again, just keep following your heart, stay authentic, speak your truth, and you will just continue and get to where I am right now, which is a state of grace and peace and real authenticity. And I am so grateful.
Oh, so beautiful. And now, if we, as our All About the Voice family, if we were to remember you by one saying, one statement, one quote, or one teaching, if there was just this one message you wanted to convey, what would it be?
3 words that come to mind are desire, imagine, expect. If you do that, you're living magically.
Thank you so much. What a magical interview indeed. So much love for you, Maddie.
Thank you, Victoria. I really appreciate your time, and I love everything that you said. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And here you have it. Desire from your heart, imagine with your mind's eye, expect, consider it done, and let it go. If you're ready to know more about your guardian angel or to experience one of Maddie's magical retreats, head over to MaddieSparkles.com. You may find the link in the notes to the episode. This is All About the Voice podcast, and I want to hear your voice. What has been of the greatest value to you today? Share your insight and share this episode with others. All links are in the description. I also want to invite the Voice of Happiness into your life via our iHappy Daily and iHappy Me apps, our daily energy boosters. You can download these apps, including a free version of iHappy Me from the Apple App Store or the Google Play App Store. For the voice of daily encouragement, grow with us with our free My Tree of Life Facebook group. If you want to join us in exploring how you can live your life with more freedom, head over to you2shine.com. That is YU2SHINE.com. I can't wait to get to know you and be a part of your journey of endless possibilities. Thank you again for listening to All About the Voice. I'm Victoria Rader, and I'll see you on the next episode.